Human trafficking is the fastest growing organized crime in the U.S., a $150 billion industry that profits from 25 million victims worldwide. According to the FBI, San Diego is one of the 13 worst regions for human trafficking in the country, netting an estimated $810 million a year. The average age a trafficking victim is lured into this illicit business? 16.
I was working as an attorney at one of San Diego's largest law firms when I first met Sarah. She was a young 20-something woman who was beautiful and intelligent, and she had been trafficked when she was just 16 years old by her boyfriend, Darren.
Lawyer Jamie Beck is on a mission to help victims of human trafficking take back their lives. In 2017, she was working as a successful attorney at San Diego's largest law firm when she made the daring decision to leave her job so she could found the nonprofit Free to Thrive, giving victims of human trafficking a fresh start with free legal and support services. What started as a one-woman band has grown to 13 employees who have helped hundreds of trafficking victims. The nonprofit recently premiered its second film about the trafficking epidemic called Last Warning Shot. It tells the story of the dangers presented to teenagers as a result of the internet and social media.
He wants to take me to dinner. This is amazing.
Thank you for coming over tonight.
What's her name?
Maddie.
She's beautiful.
Jamie was 33 years old when she founded Free to Thrive and had what she calls her Jesus year, when everything in her life changed personally and professionally. And it all began with the young trafficking victim she mentored. Tell us about Sarah and Sarah's story.
I met her, volunteering with survivors and mentoring them, and she needed legal help. And at that time, there was no Free to Thrive. There was no nonprofit helping survivors of human trafficking with their legal needs. And so, I partnered up with another lawyer at the law firm I worked at, the Procopio Law Firm, to help her with some criminal issues from when she was trafficked. And I was so inspired by her story and what she had been through, and realized that there was actually something that I could do as a lawyer to help not just her, but other survivors like her, and decided to quit my job and start a nonprofit.
Who does that?
I don't know.
It's worked out pretty well for you, though.
It has. It really is my calling. Like I know that this is what I'm supposed to be doing, and that's really affirming. So we help all human trafficking survivors, all genders, identities, people who are born in the United States, people who are born in other countries, but human trafficking, sex trafficking, and labor trafficking they impact very different. I don't even know.
Demographics of
people. different demographics, and it looks very different. Both of them happen under your nose, and we don't realize it's happening around us. But sex trafficking is exploiting somebody through a commercial sex act, so paying for sex. And people think about prostitution, but there's a lot of other types of commercial sex acts. There's pornography, there's brothels, there's illicit massage. So there's a lot of different types of commercial sex. And then labor trafficking is anytime somebody is being exploited for their labor, and it's far more than not paying minimum wage or not paying overtime. It's somebody is in a situation where they cannot leave their job, and they're being forced to work under really harsh working conditions.
So Free to Thrive helps people, all trafficking victims, in what way?
So we help them clear out all the legal issues that they have that are holding them back from moving past that experience and being free to thrive. We help survivors divorce their traffickers and get custody of their children, which unfortunately is a huge issue for our clients. Traffickers use marriage and children as a way to exploit people, which is really disturbing. We help them clean up criminal records from when they were trafficked. We help the criminal justice system understand that they're victims and not criminals. And then just lots and lots of other legal issues.
When you say you clean up some of the legal issues that they have, you were instrumental in passing a law in California that basically erases some of these infractions that have happened really of no fault of their own, correct?
Correct, yeah. It was when I first started getting involved in this work in like 2015, 2016, I learned that other states had these laws that help survivors clear the records, just as you're describing, and we didn't have that law in California. At the time, only 11 states had those laws. Now all but 6 states have them. And so not just me, but Lawyers Club of San Diego, we went to our elected officials and we said we need this law in California, and Marty Block, state senator at the time, took this and he said, let's do it, let's pass a law, and we did. We passed the law and it went into effect in January of 2017.
Give us an idea of the typical trafficking victim. We're talking about sex trafficking here. Is there such a thing?
No, there really isn't. There's a lot of danger in, even trying to educate people about human trafficking, because every story is different, every victim's experience is different, and there is no one story, but there are common threads that are woven throughout the different stories we hear. Very often a vulnerability is exploited of some sort. It could be that they're a runaway or homeless or LGBTQ or an immigrant. Sometimes they're none of those things. Sometimes their vulnerability is that they're a 16-year-old girl or boy looking for love and affection or adventure, or who knows what else. Sometimes it's an adult who doesn't have any of that history and gets exploited down the road. They fall on hard times, somebody takes advantage of them. They fall in love with someone takes advantage of them. There's no one story.
I think it's really interesting as you made this transition to in a job career. I read somewhere that you had your come to Jesus year.
Yep.
When everything in your life changed. Yeah. You were a successful lawyer. You were married.
Yep.
A happy marriage.
Yep.
And then what happened?
Everything. It started with Free to Thrive. Actually, that was the first thing. Is I was not happy in private practice. I loved my firm, but I wasn't fulfilled by the work, and I made this really daring decision, and it was terrifying at the time. I literally felt like I was jumping off a cliff, and it was so scary, and my biggest fear in life is the fear of failure. And what if this doesn't work? What if I fail? That would be horrible, right? And that's my biggest fear. And I jumped off the cliff, and I didn't sink. I felt so like I was doing exactly what I was supposed to do. And when that happened, it also gave me the space to reevaluate my personal life and realize that things weren't aligned for me in my personal life. And I had been so focused on my career that I honestly hadn't really focused on myself and my life. And so I ended up really soon after separating from my husband, ultimately getting divorced and coming out as lesbian. I had quite the career life, quite the year of life.
Could there be anything more dramatic than that?
No.
And here you are 5 years later, and how does it feel?
It feels great. I feel very whole and very secure in who I am, and something that I really feel like in your 30s you start to learn who you are and start to be comfortable in your own skin. And I feel like the person I am today is a completely different person than I was in my 20s, because I didn't know who I was or what I wanted or what I needed.
And starting this work and helping these women and men, there are men that are sex trafficked as well, not very common. Was that the spark that made you look inward?
Absolutely. I've learned so much from my clients. Every single person I've worked with has had to take their life back. Somebody else has taken a hold of their life and they've had to regain control of it. And my life experiences are very different from my clients, but I also see very much in my own life moments along the way that things could have gone in a different direction, and I feel very grateful that they didn't.
Why were you so brave? How did you do all of that?
There was a period of time where I didn't feel like I'm making this choice, that it's chosen, like this is what I'm supposed to do, and I just kept saying yes. Like I attended a training, a full day training about human trafficking. I just said yes to that. I attended that and I said, well, I can do more. What can I do? And then I got more involved and more, and then I became more passionate and more educated. And then I said, well, what more can I do? And I just kept saying yes.
So Sarah was the young woman who got you sucked into the cause. I'm sure there are other stories that are very memorable and very heart-wrenching and meaningful to you. What is one that comes to mind?
Well, one of my absolute favorite stories of a court hearing, every court case is different. Sometimes it's a really healing process for our clients. Sometimes it's very uneventful. But in one case, we went to court with our client, and it was for her vacatur, so to get her record cleared. and the judge, it was a packed courtroom back pre-COVID when we had packed courtrooms, and the judge, calls her case, and without ever saying the word human trafficking, without ever, kind of calling her out in front of this packed group of people, he said, "Who did this work?" And she kind of looked around and she said, "Me?" And he's like, "That's right, you did this work." And he said, "You should be so proud of what you've accomplished and what you've overcome." And then he said, "Would it be okay with you if I got off the bench and shook your hand?" And I've never seen a judge do this. He gets off the bench, walks down to her, shakes her hand, and the entire courtroom erupted in applause. And it was like straight out of a movie. And I was like, these things don't happen in real life. These are the things that I see in movies. I'm like, nobody claps at a courtroom. Like, that's not a thing. It was really amazing. It was very healing for her.
What that must have done for her self-esteem. One ugly thing about trafficking, besides the occupation itself, is there's a racist component to it, isn't there?
Absolutely.
Let's talk about that.
People of color are very often criminalized more, sexualized more. Even if they're, I don't know if they're trafficked more, but they're definitely criminalized more. And that there is a 400-year history about why that is. That's built, our criminal justice system has built in criminalization of people of color since the beginning of our country, starting with the slave codes and starting with Jim Crow laws, and all those things are still embedded in our criminal system today, and our clients are disproportionately impacted by that.
You must feel like you're really educating a lot of people along the way as well when it comes to this. Sex trafficking is something that's hard to talk about. It's hard to admit that it's happening. What message would you want people to know?
I want people to know that we can't ignore that this is happening, but we also should never pity people who've experienced this. I think there's always this feeling of like, oh, those poor victims. And no, our clients are survivors. They are thrivers. They are incredibly strong and resilient people who are much stronger than anybody who hasn't been through that, because that's how they've gotten to where they are today. Mm-hmm. But they do need us as a society to address these issues.
How do you spot a victim? I think a lot of people want to help, they just don't know how to help.
Well, I can say that with the training that I have and with the experience I have, I see people all the time, whether it's labor trafficking or sex trafficking, that I know in my heart something is not right, and that spidey sense that you have of this situation, something seems off. That's usually right, but the reality is that even me and the work that I do, 9 times out of 10, it would not be safe for me or that person to intervene in that moment. You can certainly alert law enforcement if it's something where they're going to be in that place for amount of time. I've called the human trafficking hotline, which is a national hotline, to report things. Mm-hmm. But the reality is that nobody is rescued from human trafficking. There is no such thing as rescuing a victim. That person has to make an affirmative choice to leave or escape. And even if you stop them and said, "Let me help you," the most times they're not going to say yes.
Some of these stories probably keep you up at night, I would imagine.
There's definitely a lot of challenges, and COVID has made it even harder for our clients. People that were doing really well, we've seen some people backslide, and that's because both the financial and mental health challenges that COVID has presented has been really, really hard on our clients.
You call them clients, incredible people. Mm-hmm. Why?
They're amazing. To have been through what they've experienced, and so often our clients are, they manage to take their trauma and either do something to help others with it or see the silver linings in what is a really awful experience. And we can all learn a lot from that.
And how do most sex trafficking victims get lured in?
Traffickers are very good at kind of cueing into, are they lonely? Do they want a father figure? Do they want a love interest? Like whatever those things are, they will find that and exploit it. And kids who are, girls who are posting sexy pictures online are very easy prey for traffickers. Boys playing on gaming apps. I would never have thought that gaming apps could be dangerous for our kids, but it is, because boys, more so boys are being, recruited through those apps. So they meet someone, they think they're their friend, same way of anybody on social media, you think they're your friend. They're really, somebody who's looking to exploit you.
So you can't be too careful about that. So Sarah, let's get back to her. We started with Sarah, let's end with Sarah. Where is she now and how did her life turn out?
She's doing great. She's graduated from college, and you know, she's off living her life. She no longer has the barriers that she had of her criminal record holding her back, and you know, she's doing exactly what she should be doing, which is thriving.
And what are the next steps for Free to Thrive?
Well, we are one of only a handful of organizations like this in the entire country, and so we are looking to expand. We're growing. We are opening our first clinic in Los Angeles right now. It'll open in the new year in Los Angeles' women's jail, and we'll keep going from there and helping more people.
Jamie Beck, thank you so much for sharing your story with the Women's Museum of California. We will continue to watch because I know we're going to be hearing a lot more about you.
Thank you so much.